Hello, morning. Mic on? Okay, so we're going to go through the Tai Chi Saber over the last, I don't know, it's been probably 70 days now, which is quite a long time. We've gone through the form several times in pieces, and we haven't gone through the form quite as much as we probably could have over that period of time. So today I'm going to go through the form with you a few times just for sequence. Hopefully, some of you have picked up on the techniques, and sequentially it's pretty long, as I mentioned. So we're going to go through the form, and let's see if we can get through it together, all right? So we're going to start off with our feet shoulder width and begin. Preparation, and continue. Step up, grasp the sparrow's tail, and then we're going to turn, okay, and continue. Hopefully the camera's at the right angle so you can track the movement. Just follow along. Take it nice and slow. Step up, kick up. So we lift the knee up and kick. Okay, so I went through that without any dialogue, mainly because sometimes when we go through the form, if I'm talking, that you're kind of listening and then try to follow, and so just silence is golden. So we just go through the motions and kind of you can track it and follow. I did it fairly slow so you can see sort of the setup and then the execution. So I think that was something that was helpful for someone that hadn't gone through the whole form from beginning to end, because once you break it up, it kind of throws you off a little. Okay, so we could try that again. So we're going to go through it again. So just define your movements. Try to work within the realm and the space. Manipulate the sword as if you didn't have anything in your hands, but yet your limbs have to move correctly to set up the positions. Just relax the shoulders. Don't overgrip the sword. So once you're more familiar with the form, or if you're comfortable, you can try to go through it as seamlessly as possible to blend the movements, just like your empty hand form. So this hand goes to the back corner. This is a kick and a push forward, turn. Remember the turns, if you tie it to the waist, then you would have a more full circular movement. This is your horse stance. Relax, take the movement right through your back. Use your shuffle step. Transfer the weight. Bring it around. What's that? Out of frame, yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Deep breathing. Inhale. Oh, there's more than 3 minutes, aren't there? Isn't it? Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So actually, when you get more familiar with your movements, just like anything else, once you're familiar, your body kind of picks up on the tempo and it taps into the body mechanics because, um, all of the things that we're doing from empty hand forms to weaponry, weapons are extension of the body, but the basic structure and the formation of the movements really stems from your core, your body mechanics, from what you've built over time with the empty hand form. Because ultimately, what's driving these movements is really your physical being. So the coordination between the two sides, which is really something that's really developed more even with the weapon, because it's hard to be just working one side. So you really have to, you're forced to work both sides. And then as far as the coordination, like the fluidity of the movement really is picked up and magnified by the fact that your hands and legs have to move. So all your positions like diagonal flying, or is this level, is this level, is this vertical, is this slanting, all of these slices become magnified, so it's very apparent if the movement is moving naturally. The shoulders have to be fairly relaxed in order for you to go over the head and under, so that it builds some range of motion, increasing flexibility. It works your ligaments and tendons. When you're working with a weapon, some people like heavy weapons because they feel like they're doing something with it. On the contrary, I like actually to work with more balanced weapons. I don't like the weapon to have a heavy end on it because it kind of dominates the movement and you can't control it as well. And the other thing is, if it's too heavy, it actually puts a lot of stress and strain on your wrists. Where the weapon, the balance point, in this position, the handle actually, when it's a little bit heavier, is better because you can have most of the weight in your hand. Now you're not using a huge, or very strong grip. You're not using a tremendous amount of strength to hold that, because what ends up happening is your forearm will get stiff, and then you can't really maneuver the sword. So while we've gone through the sequence, make sure that when you set up and you go in, just like in any of the other movements, that when you shift your weight, your body goes here. When you step out and you shift your weight, it's just like brushing the knee. You want the momentum to come forward. If you're going to thrust, the thrust is still following and abiding by the same principles that we have, that the power comes from your legs. And you have to have a good foundation and a root. And then there's the same idea of shifting a weight, substantial and insubstantial, passive and active. When we create a movement like that, your timing between the hands and the leg has to work together. So when you're in the setup, when you're in a position, you want to feel balanced, you want to step, you want to thrust, you want to step, you want to thrust, you turn, you set up your position, so your joints actually have to be quite nimble, accommodating the direction of your movement. When you slice, you want the movement to be complete. You want the movement to completely slice around, because that's what you're doing. A chop or a slice is not complete if you stop it. Imagine if you're cutting something on your cutting board and you cut it partially and you don't follow through, you don't make it to the end. Okay? So if you watch people or butchers when they're slicing, say, large carcasses or pieces of, say, a roast, when the blade has to be long enough to get through two sides, so you don't have to stop it, and because that breaks the continuity of the cut, and you're going to get jagged edges. So when you slice with the sword, it's just magnifying the move. the more you turn your body to accommodate the movement, that allows the movement to become full. If you don't complete the movement with the body, then you don't have the complete action. So it ends up stopping here or stopping here, and then you shortcut the movement, so you're not going to get that fullness. Like when you're spinning, you have to spin all the way around, ultimately all the way around, so that when you slice, it's going to go over, over. So you see, when I did this, the hand is actually fairly loose. You're not over gripping it. Because if you want to go to vertical and then move in and then over, you can't be really holding the sword too tight. See? So that's really fingertip control. The fingertip control is something, is part of a motor skill. It's like when you write or you do things with your hands, like using a scalpel or something that's cutting, like a surgeon. It has to be very refined and very sensitive. So when you feel your movements, when you're moving, even though you're gripping, you have to define the direction of movement and then let that action be articulated and directed by here, but yet it comes from the whole body. So that's something that takes some time and some practice till your body gets familiar with that. The other thing is the body form that you have, especially in this type of form. You're doing a lot of twirling and spinning and standing on legs and so forth, single-legged positions, a lot of cross stances. You have to cross and then feel balance, finding your root here and then step. So when you pivot and shift, this is unweighting. So, and then sinking back into the same. It takes some flexibility in a sense, but then the other is controlling your center so that you can sink into your stance and not bend into your stance. And that allows you some stability there. So these are experiences. When you're learning something like this and you've never done it before, it's completely foreign to the body. So you have to build that. I mean, it's hard enough to use a single apparatus in your hand. Even just using a hammer, people have a little trouble with it. And that's just using one arm. Then you try to build that into the body. So if you're using something like this and you're controlling the chopping and the slicing and you're going this way and that way and that way and that way, how do you build that mechanical skill? It's from really connecting with your space. So if you think of proprioception and spatial awareness and what's around you when you're moving, it's it's quite amazing, how much spatial awareness you develop, and integration of body, and how do you not end up bumping into the other arm because it knows how to get away from this side. Even here, when I'm here and I push, how does it know the hand is actually, or pushes, or chops, and turns, and you slice, you lift, you turn. See, all of this stuff, by turn, it's all timed to your body. So all of these things, the timing mechanism really is programming into your body. So it has to recognize where it happens, when it happens, and directionally where it goes. So it's complex in one way, but tremendous benefit in other ways, where you're building neurons and building, insightfulness of movement. So it's good. All of this will help your cooking skills when you use your utensils. And if you're not good with chopsticks and so forth, the dexterity that you develop here will help your nimbleness in your fingers. So all of this stuff will be beneficial. So, like a lot of people, Tai Chi is actually good for arthritis. So a lot of people have circulation problems because we're not using a lot of strength. But because we're doing gripping and this with not a lot of tension, you're actually manipulating your fingers in tremendous circulation goes in the hand. So on that note, I think it's about time. Is it, Lucian? Okay, so let's pick up a section of the form that we could work on. Let's go forward, sit back, and then shift and push. So you always are passing through your empty stance and directing your movements directionally with your feet. When you go like this, don't go way out here. Come through your center, pass through, and then let it go. Okay. Now you see I'm in my leaning position. I shift my weight, take a step forward, and then I transfer my weight. So that's pretty standard procedure for Tai Chi because we are constantly shifting the weight. And now when I go like this, I'm bringing my weight back to the other side to create the horse stance. So you never, what's that? Out of frame. So you're never really double weighted. So do we know what the term double weighted is? Double weighted is when your weight is 50-50. So you, in a 50-50 position, you end up being kind of heavy on your feet or one side not controlling the transition through the legs. So your leg shifting actually goes through your hips and your torso. Don't go from foot to foot. You're going to end up being heavy on your feet and you're not making a good transition. Without a good transition on the legs, it'll be very difficult to tie your hands or your upper body to those movements. So drive the movements from the legs and then finish and define the movement directionally, and the articulation of the movement is in this. It's either the tip, the edge, or the back, depending on what you're using, or that's the intent of your apparatus. So that's something that you have to pay attention to. But in the beginning, it's all sequence, just like you're learning the typical form. And in the beginning, when we first started this, and we go over the head, this is an overhead move. So this is something that you have to do so that you develop the muscle memory and what that feels like and how much that has to move to get consistency and accuracy of that movement so that when you fold, you know where that is when it's going over the head. When you stab, it has to be on your center line. Okay? When you're in a vertical position, it has to be vertical. And the verticalness comes from this position and how that sits in your hand. So your hand has to be in a vertical position. So if you take the sword out of the hand, it should still look like that. So it's like holding a cup and it has water in it. If it's tilted, it's going to spill. When I'm sitting here like this, I'm holding the handle, but the handle is as if I'm holding a cup in a vertical position. So that gives you an idea that position is very important. Okay. So on that note, keep practicing kind of for sequence. Just revisit that video and go through it. And eventually, in time, it'll sink in. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. YouTube is a good place to go. We're trying to build our membership and build our subscription, getting more people to subscribe. So hopefully you can do that. Share it with your friends, and see you next time.